There's a study that quietly destroys one of the biggest assumptions about relationships. Researchers tracked thousands of married couples for years, measuring happiness, fulfillment, life satisfaction, and they found something uncomfortable. Getting married does make you happier, but only for about a year. Then it drops right back to where it was before. Same person, same baseline, just with a ring and a shared life. So here's the question nobody asks out loud. If that's true, why does everyone act like being single is the problem? Because the hardest part about being single isn't being single, it's the pressure, the small moments, the look across the dinner table, the tone in someone's voice, the question that sounds harmless but isn't. Why are you still single? At 25, it's a joke. At 35, it hits differently. At 45, people stop asking and just assume something went wrong. And after hearing it enough times, something starts to shift. Not on the surface, but underneath. You start wondering, what if they're right? But here's what most people never realize. That question is almost never about you. It's about them. Research on social comparison shows something interesting. People who feel uncertain about their own life choices are far more likely to question yours. So when someone looks at your life and asks for an explanation, what they're really asking is, did I choose correctly? You're not the problem, you're the mirror. But even when you know that, it still gets to you sometimes. Not because it's true, but because repetition is powerful. Say something enough times, and even confident people start to question it, quietly, subtly, in ways they don't even fully notice. But here's where the story changes. There's a group of people psychologists spent years studying, people who aren't single by accident, but by alignment. They call them single at heart. These aren't people waiting for the right person. They're not avoiding love. They've just built something most people never do, a life that already feels complete. Think about this. You wake up on a Saturday. No expectations, no compromises, no one to check in with. You eat what you want, go where you want, stay as long as you want, or do absolutely nothing. And for once, you don't feel like you owe anyone an explanation for it. That feeling, that's not loneliness, that's autonomy. And most people have never actually experienced it fully. But here's something almost nobody talks about. We hear a lot about loneliness, but there's another experience that's just as real and far less understood. It's called aloneliness. It's when you don't get enough time alone, when you're constantly around people but never fully by yourself. No space to think, no space to breathe, no space to just exist without performing. And for some people, that feels worse than being alone ever could. So here's the paradox. The people who stay single the longest often aren't the ones who struggle with love. They're the ones who take it the most seriously. They don't rush it. They don't dilute it. They don't trade it for convenience. They'd rather be alone for years than give their life to the wrong person for comfort. And from the outside, that could look confusing. But from the inside, it feels like clarity. But here's the part most people avoid talking about, because it complicates everything. Not everyone who is single is free. Some people didn't choose independence. They adapted to disappointment. Maybe you watched a relationship fall apart up close. Arguments, silence, distance. Or something quieter, like watching someone slowly lose themselves trying to keep a relationship alive. And somewhere, all of that, a decision formed. Not loudly, but clearly. I'm never going to let that happen to me. And that decision? It protected you. It gave you standards. It gave you control. It kept you safe. But it may have also built something else. Distance. Because there's a difference between being alone because you found peace and being alone because you've learned to avoid risk. One feels like freedom. The other feels the same until you look closer. So if you're single, this is the only question that really matters. Does your life feel open or just protected? Because those can look identical, but they come from completely different places. Either way, you're not behind, you're not broken, and your life isn't missing something just because it looks different. But you do owe yourself one thing: honesty. Not the version that sounds good, the version that's true. So, I'm curious. Be real with me. Does your solitude feel like freedom or protection? Drop it in the comments. That's where this gets interesting.